This is your spoiler warning for Revolution of the Daleks. If you do not want any spoilers for this story, then feel free to stop watching now. Revolution of the Daleks brings the Doctor and company back to our screens for the first time in 10 months with this New Year's Day special. There's certainly a lot of elements to discuss about this one, like most of Chibnall's scripts. He's put a lot in there, and I have some things that I really liked about this and some elements that didn't work so well for me, but I want to start off with the positives. Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor is still really good. She's placed in a unique situation for this story as she's trapped in the prison of the Dadoon that they stuck her in last time. I really like that as a starting place for this one. She's in a really bad position and the companions are left on Earth by themselves. That's really good because we get to see how they're coping with their tough situations. It's also good because of how naturally it leads into the rest of the story with Captain Jack returning and the eventual leaving of Ryan and Graham. I didn't know exactly how she was going to be rescued from prison, but given that Captain Jack was announced to be in this special, him rescuing her did seem the most likely direction they would go, and ultimately that is what happened. And it worked for me. I do kind of wish it was a little bit more difficult for him to actually save her. I know he apparently waited like 19 years, but I wish that maybe we got a bit more of a sense of how tough that escape actually was, or how difficult it was for him to get there. That said, I know there's only so much that you can do in 70 minutes of television, and I don't consider that to be a big issue from this story, but it does feel a tiny bit lacking as is. I think this is more than made up for though by just how much fun it is to see Captain Jack back on screen alongside the Doctor 11 full years after their last encounter in The End of Time Part 2. I've said this before, but I absolutely adore the character, and whenever he shows up in an episode, he's one of my favorite parts, and that's true for this one as well. His interactions with 13 in particular are delightful, and John Barrowman just brings so much to the episode. And it's not just that he's fun, he does have an actual purpose within this story as well. His conversations with Yaz as she deals with the fact that the Doctor has returned after being missing for 10 months, that's really good as a scene. He is somebody who has been left behind by the Doctor and who knows people in that position as well, so he has lived experience to bring to the discussion, and that makes for quite an effective moment portrayed on screen. Another really good character scene comes towards the end of the story when the Doctor and Ryan sit down for a bit. I love when the show finds time for a couple of characters to just talk, because oftentimes it does feel that things are moving at lightning speed as the threat escalates and humanity is put in danger, so to just have a little moment where Ryan is able to help the Doctor better come to terms with the events that took place on Gallifrey in the last episode, I really enjoyed that. It's a quiet little character moment, and I would love to see more stuff like this throughout Series 13. On the whole, I think this episode did a good job of giving us a fair amount with all of these characters, but Graham is definitely the one that had the least to do here. While everybody else had time for a quiet moment or an interesting little scene with another character, Graham doesn't get much until the very end of the episode with Ryan, which we will get to, I promise. And that's a bit of a shame given that this is the man's final appearance, at least as a primary companion. One aspect I really need to talk about is the usage of Jack Robertson. I absolutely cannot speak to Chibnall's intentions while writing the story itself, nor would I try to, but the way the story is presented, it certainly feels that the character is only put in the episode for the sake of having somebody to bring back the Daleks. And that's fine, to be honest. I mean, if the story needs a reason to exist, why not make it this guy? But that said, going into this one, I thought it was such an odd choice to bring him back after his appearance in Arachnids in the UK, because to me, he was the worst part of that episode and took away from what could have been a much better piece. But having said that, he's significantly better in 2021 than the story in 2018. He felt very over the top in his first appearance and was kind of annoying in a way that didn't work for me. And while those moments still exist in this one, I believe that Chris Noth gives a much more nuanced performance this time and makes the character work in a way that doesn't detract from the story on the whole. There are scenes where he has to carry an episode alongside another actor, and I thought that him and those supporting characters did a good job of being engaging, fairly interesting, and not detracting from the episode on the whole. Him, and the others too, worked for me significantly better than I was ever expecting, which is such a surprise, to be honest. This story very much feels like a sequel to Chibnall's previous Dalek story, Resolution, going as far as to have a little recap at the beginning of the episode. It takes elements from that story, and I feel that it uses them in some pretty interesting ways. There's not any sort of deep dive into one particular aspect of the Daleks or how they connect with our world, though there was a fair amount done with them, but the story never felt like it was too focused on exploring any one aspect of the things that it actually brought up. For example, we see the Daleks used in some rather great imagery alongside police in the UK. Now keep in mind, there aren't any Daleks inside of those casings at this point in the story, so when we see them, they are defense drones functioning as police. At that part of the story, they aren't doing anything that cops don't do, so the show isn't saying, wow, look how bad the police are now that the Daleks have gotten involved. It's showing you how bad they currently are through using the Daleks in effectively the same way as police are used. I thought that was a great idea and a good element within this, but it certainly didn't last for very long. I would have loved to see the show go a little bit more beyond that, but as it stands, it does feel a bit surface level. Yes, all cops are bastards, but just showing that and not doing much with it, well, it leaves a lot to be desired. As said, they do use the Daleks in a lot of different ways throughout this one, so the defense drones eventually do get Daleks inside of them, and that's the point where they can no longer serve as an allegory for the militarization of the police, because, well, now they're just Daleks. And then the show moves on to just have Daleks on Earth, followed by more Daleks coming to take out the impure Daleks, and that doesn't even touch on the elements borrowed from Resolution, where we see somebody again being controlled by a Dalek outside of its casing. All of these things work as little parts of the story, but you never really get the sense that it's interested in examining them all that much, which is a bit of a shame if you ask me. While Revolution of the Daleks doesn't hold a candle to some of the greatest Dalek stories out there, it does do some things right with them. As said, the moments we have are a lot of fun. It was cool to see the Daleks killing other Daleks, and the reasoning behind it made a lot of sense to me. And this one does share another thing with Resolution, and that is that, like that story, the escalation of the threat throughout it is really well handled. We start off with much smaller threats. The Daleks have shown up, but at that point it's just a casing with no creature inside, and then we find out that they've been cloned, and everything just keeps getting more and more dangerous to the point where the Doctor had to actually call in other Daleks to take out these ones. So while I definitely wanted more from the Daleks, or maybe just more focus, there was still a fair amount to like in this story. I've talked about a lot from this one, but I have saved what I consider to be the most important part of it for last, which is of course the exit of Graham and Ryam. Look, they had already spoiled this beforehand, which is a shame, but fortunately that didn't really take away from the moment all that much. When you look at all of New Who, these two are certainly among my least favorite companions. That's not because either of them is bad, but it's because I think they just didn't get as much development as the likes of Rose or Bill. And having said that, I do still quite like them and really enjoy this goodbye to these characters. It all feels very natural. The fact that the companions have been stuck on Earth for so long, and that Ryan has had time to reconnect with people who we've seen him be distant from in Series 12. It makes sense that he's adjusted to life back on Earth and decides that he wants to stay with that life. Additionally, it also makes a ton of sense that Graham, seeing his grandson is choosing to stay home, would prefer to spend time with him than travel the universe, even if he would really love to do both. I do like this a lot because it all feels like it flows so naturally together, and I love that. You look at these events from a character perspective, and they absolutely track. And from an emotional level, this end was great too. I found myself actually holding back tears with this shot of these characters giving one last hug before they part ways. I didn't expect it to get to me so much, but it did, which is further proof of just how much I actually enjoy this TARDIS team. It really is a great goodbye to these characters, and I love the fact that they get the opportunity to choose when they want to go. And in that way, it is quite similar to Martha's exit from the show, because where most companions encounter some tragic situation that forces them to leave the TARDIS, these ones actually made the decision that it was best for them to leave at that time, and I really kind of love that. I also like that they're going to be taking care of things on Earth while the Doctor is away. It's just a very sweet, nice place to leave off these characters, and I can't help but be fond of this goodbye to them. I also look forward to what we get in Series 13 of the show, where we will return to a TARDIS duo for the first time since 2017. I'm excited to see the dynamic of these two people, the Doctor and Yaz, and hope to see them both get a lot of great character scenes together later in the year or whenever Series 13 arrives. Wait, what? Overall, I found Revolution of the Daleks to be a thoroughly entertaining and fun adventure, giving me just the right Doctor Who fix that I needed to kick off 2021. Captain Jack is so much fun to have around, and I really enjoyed what we got from our main characters in this story, seeing them have some quiet little moments as well as a fair amount of excitement throughout. The Daleks were used in an entertaining way, and I enjoyed their presence within this, though I definitely feel that there was a fair amount left to be desired when all was said and done. The exit of our main characters was handled with grace, and I found very little that didn't work for me here, and a lot that did. I had a blast with this episode, and I'm going to give Revolution of the Daleks a rating of 9.25 out of 10. And that does it for this review. Be sure to leave your thoughts on this one down below if you feel like doing so, and I will be back soon with a ranking of the companion exits, a discussion of the new companion we'll be getting in Series 13, as well as a discussion of where the show goes from here, more classic reviews, and many Doctor Who videos in the near future. So I hope to see you around for some of that, but if not, that is absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.